Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors studio, here's Steve Jones.
Today's show brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com, where you can go to sunburymotors.com and check out the great line of Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai pre-owned inventory. Great deals available. You can do it from the comfort of your own home. All at sunburymotors.com. Play-by-play call of the day.
Carson's also on the field. They blitz right. He fumbles it. He gives it away. Do you believe that? Holy cow. Wow. Garrett Taylor off the fumble caused by Micah Parsons. Ridiculous.
Micah Parsons had an incredible Cotton Bowl that day in Arlington with 3 tackles for losses, 2 forced fumbles, and a brilliant performance of being the defensive MVP of the game. Very pleased to be joined by Dr. Robert Lombardi, PIAA. Bob, how have you been? I hope you and yours have been safe and sound.
Oh, thanks for having us, Steve. We're all good. Thanks for asking.
Well, let's start with this. On a voluntary basis, people can get back to working out. Discuss how painstaking it has been to make sure that you have the best plan possible, even though we all know because it's a virus it can't be perfect.
Well, that's the challenge, and I think our sport medicine committee was clairvoyant by making the recommendation to the board to let each school make their own individualized assessment and then make their own individualized plan, because one size doesn't fit all. We have a number of schools that, are quite small. They only have a limited number of sports, and then you have, schools the size of State College right in your backyard, or North Penn, or North Allegheny, and that's a different dynamic. So I think that's been helpful, and I think putting it in the hands of the local administrators, they know their community, they know their people the best, they know the health care available to them. If they have ATCs on staff, if they have nurses, if they, of course, their head physician. So involving all them in the plan, I think, has been a great thing. And also being able to put out some guidance from CDC, UPMC, the NFHS as template, I think is very helpful.
Because you just talked, Bob, about the really diversity of the state. I mean, with all due respect, this is not trying to administer rules in Rhode Island or Delaware. I mean, this is a huge, diverse state. And I say that with all due respect to 2 great states. How important was it that it didn't have to be one size fit all, and that local administrators felt like they were involved in the decision?
I think that's crucial, Steve, because, yes, they are involved. They can tailor it to what their needs are. And the other part of that is, you sure don't want somebody sitting in Harrisburg that's trying to put together a plan, and they may not know the local community of the State College area or the Clearfield area or the Shamokin area, and they come up with a plan that's so restrictive that they can't comply with it. So having the local information to dovetail to the individual needs allows for the success of that program, and that's what we need here. We need success. We need people to be able to find out best practices, and we got 10 weeks, 8 weeks to get this going in good shape, because the setback may hinder the opportunity to start the fall on time, and nobody wants that. So I think that input is vital.
Obviously, nobody knows what the landscape will look like on July the 16th. But how different is life compared to March 16, April 16, and May 16th, where you feel like you can move forward because life has changed each one of those months?
Yeah, you're right. On May 13th, the governor closed the schools for 2 weeks, and then subsequently closed them for the rest of the year. So that's why last Wednesday was such a big day for everyone. When the governor came out with some guidelines, just think of all that pent-up energy. And the thing that we were concerned with is we were hearing horror stories of kids going outside their school community to other recreational programs that were being allowed, and now they might be working out or playing under the guise of someone that is not certified as a coach, or may not have first aid, may not have concussion awareness, not have cardiac awareness, may not have their 3 background clearances. So we think it's safer for the student to be in the under the guidance, supervision of their local school and coach than it is to go out to a private area, private practice, private rec program. So we thought Wednesday was a big day to take the handles off somewhat the students so that their campuses could open up for activity.
We had Senator Pat Toomey on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he had put together a group that included Jimmy Rollins, the former great softball pitcher Jenny Finch, and others, and one was an epidemiologist from Stanford. And he had cited, now this dealt with youth sports, so we're talking about Little League Baseball and so forth. So obviously the athletes we're talking about are older. But in that, they cited a study in Iceland where the virus, according to the study in Iceland, I can't believe, Bob, you and I are talking about studies in Iceland, but we are.
Yeah, Steve, they're going to start questioning our sanity.
I know. There's like, Iceland? Yeah, no. Bob and I are big fans of Reykjavik. But it showed that youngsters, younger people, did not, quote, pass the virus up. That's what it showed. When you see stuff like that, does it give you maybe some semblance of confidence that, quote, we can pull this off?
Oh, sure. It gives you hope. And you know what that can do.
Oh, yeah.
Just the idea, and Steve, you mentioned earlier on the question about the last few months, just look at the difference in your area, in Center County being green, in the last 10 days. It's huge. And I'm hearing a good part of the state, if not all of it, may be going green pretty soon here in the next week to 10 days. That would be tremendous because it just goes to show how quickly it changes. And getting back to the study, if young people, and you've seen the data that comes out every day from the Department of Health, I think the age group that we're talking about is 13 to 18 for the most part. It's less than 2% of those have contracted this. That's a pretty small number. And maybe that's a number that we could manage and stay ahead of and keep everybody safe. I think it's an important piece, and I think you've done a heck of a job with your research, man, going and getting one from Iceland.
You know me. As soon as they tell me, hey,
yes, I do. Well prepared.
You know me when it comes to Icelandic research. So, when how heartbreaking. I mean, it was necessary, had to be done. But I know how much you personally care about what sports can mean to young people. How heartbreaking was the spring for you?
Gut-wrenching. Absolutely gut-wrenching. I have 2 daughters that just went through the high school careers. We have staff members here. Their kids are playing high school athletics. And it's brutal. And then to not only the spring sports season itself, but then all the end of year's activities that are so important, the prom, the athletic awards, baccalaureate, graduation, all the things that go with it, the recognition of kids for their 4-year career of being a valedictorian or a salutatorian, and people have come up with some creative ways, with the graduation parades and, the trunk drive-by or whatever they're calling them, people going through drive-in theaters, going through and making a parade, so to speak. But, gee, it's been tough. It's not anything that I would have expected in all the years that I've been here. And Steve, have you ever seen anything like this?
Never. I know you think I went through the Spanish flu in 1917-18, Bob, but I didn't.
Well, you beat me to it on that. I got the guys in the coal region the other day on that. They're still sore.
Yeah, I mean, look, nobody's ever gone through it, so there's no playbook for this. But, again, let's go back to, say things can be pulled off and can happen. What do you think it's going to mean just for the psyche of everybody to have some semblance of normalcy right in our own backyards, with whether it's a soccer game or whether it's a football game on a Friday night or a cross-country meet?
I think it's huge. And it will reinvigorate schools, communities. I think schools will become a bigger center of their community activity. Like most 75% of our state being rural, many of those schools are the center of community activity anyway. But I think this will even further promote that. And what I certainly hope it promotes is pride. Pride in their local school, pride in their local community. That's important. We look at our state. We pride ourselves on our wrestling programs, our football programs, our track and field programs, and field hockey that we had the national group right down here in Lancaster for years. I mean, we have a lot of pride in all our sports, and I don't mean to discount anyone. I just wanted to keep the answer a little shorter. But our kids excel, and that's because they have good training. They're good, talented kids. They have good coaching. We have good officiating. You don't have one without the other because the chain breaks if they're not all in the same. So I think it's going to be a renewal of a return to normal. I think it's going to be a renewal of the support of your local school community. At least I hope so. I really hope so.
Because you and I both know, Bob, there is nothing like sports and high school sports that brings a town or an area, because obviously school districts have expanded, together.
Absolutely. You don't see the fire truck waiting for the AAU team that came back from the game or the championship at the Shore, but you see the state champion baseball, softball, track and field team, lacrosse, whatever. Last year, our state final, Central Dauphin, a local school here in the Harrisburg area, they got a police and fire truck escort to Hershey and home. And they didn't win the game, unfortunately for them. But just think about that. That's a moment that I run into people every once in a while, and they'll say, "Oh my God, it was such a great night," and that's the memory. That's the
Sealands Grove baseball team.
Yep.
Hey, they got escorted all the way, all over the place. It was one of the greatest things ever for them.
Yep, and have Southern in their backyard now. It seems to be a little bit old hat for them, but when you have a guy like Jim there that's coaching and has done such a great job developing a program, people want to be part of it, and I don't blame them. Success breeds happiness.
Yeah, there's no question. Well, my friend, the great respect I have for you. It's great to have you with us. And it's been so many tough decisions, I think, so far. You've navigated it so well. And let's see how this all plays out. I think it's going to play out really well. We're hopeful. We really are. And we see that you're opening up your campus up there August 24th. That's a big step. And I think, those little victories keep adding up. And we're really hopeful.
cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I'm with you all the way on
you.
that. Hey, Bob, thanks so much. It's great to have you. Thanks for the time.
Our pleasure. Be well. And I love the research on Iceland. You win.
Thanks, Bob. Dr. Robert Lombardi, Bob Lombardi, PIAA. He's one of the really good guys out there. Look, the PIAA can be obviously an easy target to talk about, when it's an organization, but it doesn't mean they're not run by really good people that look, he really cares. He really cares. Are you going to agree with every decision they make? No, of course not. I mean, the only one whose decision everybody agrees with all the time is the guy that was recently profiled in the Daily Item. Who was that, by the way?
Well, that'd be the suit.
You're going to have to send me a copy of this article. Because you know me. When I go to the library, I always go right to the area where they have fiction. Back with more in a moment. News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by Sunbury Motors. When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle in a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you, the other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years. Great to have you with us today. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors. And thanks to Bob Lombardi for being on the show. Baird now joins us from Selinsgrove. Baird, how are you today?
I am well, Steve. I trust you are also.
I am. Thanks for asking, Baird. I appreciate that.
I'll be quick because I know you're going to be going to a break here shortly. I'm a season ticket holder for football, and I'm sure that Sandy Barber and a key group of people are working diligently on figuring out ultimately what the plan will be for whether or not they allow ticket holders to attend games and at what volume. Any thoughts, and I'm sure there's a million moving parts involved with this, but any thoughts on when they may make that announcement?
Well, I think, Bear, the first step was announcing on Sunday night and into Monday morning that the students would be back on campus for fall semester beginning August 24th. And there'll be some select, second summer session. So in stages, you've had the football players allowed back, and they're now into their workouts. They're doing workouts 3 days a week in Haluba, and then today's a running day. And then the next stage will be the second group with Micah and those guys and Noah Kane and so forth coming back on Sunday. The next step was obviously making sure that they said yes to having students back on campus. That was a big step toward playing games in the fall because, as Sandy Barber said on the show back in March, one of the keys would be having students on campus. If students are allowed to be back on campus, there's a feeling there's a safety for them to be there, then it's safe for the student athletes to be there. Now the next step is going to be what you talked about, opening up the stadium, and then determining what is the safest procedure as to how many people would be allowed in and what procedures that will be in place. And that includes everything from tailgating to being in the stadium. Some people have announced, for example, Ohio State originally said 20 to 22,000. Then they threw out the number 50. You're like, okay. You had Iowa saying they intend to play in front of everybody. Ole Miss saying they intend to play in front of everybody. Well, and Penn State hasn't made that announcement yet because they haven't had to make the announcement yet. The first thing they had to do was have the university discuss what the university was doing with fall students, and now that part has been taken care of, which now leads us to your question, which will be, I think, the next thing they will come out with.
Okay. I can't fathom that they'll have 107,000 folks attend those games, so I'm sure it will be complicated in figuring out how many it's safe. To be honest with you, I really don't want to go to the games. I would rather defer my seats to somebody else for this coming year. So one of my questions is going to be, for those of us who elect sports or are chosen not to, we're not going to lose our seat opportunities. I hope.
Yeah, I can't.
That out.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I can't answer that question. I know it's a question that obviously is going to be asked by somebody at some point about that, because that's a very important question, especially with somebody who's been a long time loyal season ticket holder such as yourself, Baird. So that's something to obviously they'll get to and cross that bridge. So I think step one is saying how many people they feel comfortable having in the stadium. Then the next step after that will be how you want to go about doing it. And then, of course, talking about a situation such as yours. So everything goes in steps. Getting the students back on campus starting August 24th was a big step to then open the door for the steps that you're talking about. All right, 1.5 hour to go here on the show. You're going to text me that article?
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is The Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Some great deals out there right now. Check out the great line of Ford, Lincoln, Kia, Hyundai pre-owned inventory. All at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Head online at sunburymotors.com. So, Richard Deitch, who does a great job for The Athletic, before that with Sports Illustrated when it comes to covering media, put together a survey of fans on the NFL. They had 2,693 responses. Okay? So this is what his survey of nearly 2,700 people said. What broadcasting team among the top teams at each network is your favorite? 57% said CBS, Jim Nantz, Tony Romo. 28%, Al Michaels, Chris Collinsworth. 9.4% Joe Buck, Troy Aikman. And then on radio, Kevin Harlan and Kurt Warner on Westwood won 5%. They did not want to include the ESPN broadcast team because Joe Tessitore and Booger McFarland are not coming back. That's why they weren't included. Which network do you prefer when it comes to your game broadcasts? 40% said CBS. 35% said NBC. Fox got 21%. Then ESPN, actually NFL Network had more responses, by the way, than ESPN did. NFL Network did better.
This is my surprise face.
Great.
Just saying.
Who do you consider to be the NFL's best color analyst? 74.1% said Tony Romo. Chris Collinsworth was next at 13%. Then after that, other finished third. No, check it. I'm sorry. My apologies. Troy Aikman finished third, which he should have. Well, ahead of other, obviously. A little bit for Kurt Warner. Charles Davis, our friend Charles Davis, whom I've termed as one of the nicest guys on the planet, which he is, was actually on here. It's good. And Charles has made the move over to CBS, by the way. He's going to be paired up with Ian Eagle. That should be a great pairing. I think that's going to be a great pairing for the NFL. It's going to be a great pairing for CBS. Who is the best play-by-play guy? 43%, 42.7% said Al Michaels.
As they should.
Jim Nance had 18%. It was second. Joe Buck was third, 15.2%. Kevin Harlan had 14%. Then after that, Ian Eagle, and then Kevin Burkhardt. Other also was in there. Sideline reporter is best. 28% said Aaron Andrews of Fox. Michelle Tafoya was second. Actually, check that. I'm sorry. Michelle Tafoya was first, 28.1%. Hold on a second. I'm going to even split. Aaron Andrews had 28.1% Fox. Michelle Tafoya, 25.4% NBC. Tracy Wolfson, 15.2%. Pam Oliver, 14.1% from Fox. Which pregame show is the best? Can I pick none? I don't watch pregame shows. I don't watch any pregame shows.
Yes, I know.
You do, right?
I do. I love Fox.
Suderoni is a big CBS guy because of Bill Cowher. In fact, they always refer to him as coach on the show, and he hasn't coached anything in over a decade. I don't even think he's coached Little League, has he?
Nope.
Just kidding, Suit. Which pregame show is the best? The winner, with 32.3%, is Fox. In second was NBC with Mike Tirico, Tony Dungy, Rodney Harrison. Third, hold on a second here. I think it's actually first is Fox. Kurt Menefee, Terry Bradshaw, Jimmy Johnson, Howie Long, Michael Strahan. Second is NFL Network. Rich Eisen, Michael Irvin, Steve Mariucci, and Kurt Warner. Third is NBC, Tirico, Dungy, and Harrison. And fourth is the one the Suit watches. James Brown, Nate Burleson, Boomer Esiason, Phil Simms, and Coach Cowher. They finished fourth, 15%. Which current NFL quarterback would make the best broadcaster? 49% said Drew Brees. 17% said Phillip Rivers. 13% said Russell Wilson. He'd be very good. 12% said Aaron Rodgers. Tom Brady had a sliver. What percentage of an NFL pregame show should be dedicated to sports gambling information? 39% said up to 10%. 22% said up to 20%. 29% said zero. What percentage of a game broadcast should be dedicated to sports gambling information? 51.3% said zero. 37.7% said up to 10%. Now remember, we just went through, it was only 5 games, but the XFL had a lot of gambling stuff on, over, unders, point spreads, things like that. So at least we've had an experiment with it in game. And, 51%, 0.3% said zero. Now, they feel better about the pregame show, but not during the game. Should every NFL broadcast include a rules analyst? 82.6% said yes.
Really? I would say no.
17.4% said no. Which rules analyst does the best job? I think it's going to be a pretty obvious one. 48.5%, Mike Pereira of Fox. Gene Steratore second, 27.6%. Dean Blandino third, 18.2%. Then a sliver each for Terry McCauley of NBC and John Perry of ESPN. I think John Perry, by the way, is very good.
I love Gene Steratore. He'd be my number one.
I was when Dean was doing, when Gene was doing basketball. I said, I knew his father a little bit, and so he got because Gene's from Western Pennsylvania,
I did know that.
Down in Washington County, something like that, and I think that. So we were able to talk all the time about his dad, and I'd kid him. I said, "You got a little more hair than your dad ever did." He goes, "Oh, God, yeah." Which network do you prefer when it comes to coverage of the NFL draft? 54.8% said ESPN. 39.8% said NFL Network. And by the way, Trey Wingo, and his contract is really squirrely right now. How could a guy have his contract be a little bit squirrely when you see the job he did for 3 days in the NFL draft? I thought he was absolutely brilliant.
Agreed.
Do you think the national TV announcers root against your team? Do you think they root against the Eagles?
No.
Okay. Now, if we were bringing the suit in, the suit thinks they're anti-everything.
Oh, yeah.
87.2% said no. Only 12.8% said yes. What technical innovation has made the biggest impact on your viewing experience? So, for you, what is it?
Honestly, it's hard to say. I like all sorts of different ones. I like the Skycam to a point for the all-22 look. I'd probably just say the goal line.
Okay. 56.1% said the yellow first down marker. 32.8% said the red zone channel. Then a sliver said pylon cam, and a sliver said mic'd up referees to explain penalties. So there you go. That was the athletics survey. Richard Deitch put it together. They love Romo. You love Romo.
He's really hit the ground running. He's done a great job. But my pairing would be Al Michaels, Troy Aikman, and Michelle Tafoya for the sideline.
Just so you know, I like Aikman, but I really like Chris Collinsworth. I think Chris Collinsworth does a great job. And I think each network of the three major networks, let's leave ESPN out of it because
they don't deserve to be in the conversation right now when it comes to NFL football.
Ever since Mike left, I'm talking about Tirico, it's been a struggle. Okay. And by the way, Sean McDonough deserved more of a chance than he got. I am a big Sean McDonough guy. But I think when you look at the three major networks in the NFL, Jim Nantz, Al Michaels, and Joe Buck are all outstanding. I think Troy Aikman, Chris Collinsworth, and Tony Romo are all outstanding. I think the viewer does not lose when their team is on one of the big three networks. I don't think you lose anything. I think all of them have excellent play-by-play people, and I think all of them have excellent analysts. Romo's interesting, and this is where and Jim Nantz should get a lot of credit for this. Jim Nantz has done a great job of giving Tony Romo room to operate. And I think Jim Nantz has done some of his best play-by-play work with Tony Romo. It just seems to be a real punch and enthusiasm to what's going on. And I think that as a play-by-play person, and we've talked about this before, because I've talked about this with, I think if you listen to the Penn State broadcasts, Dick Girardi, who's going to be on the show later in the week because we have the Belmont Stakes is this week. Dick's going to join us later in the week, Thursday or Friday. It might be Friday. Talk about the Belmont. But I think people will notice on the basketball broadcast, Dick may talk more than any other analyst out there on radio. And there's a reason for that. Because I think people want to hear what he has to say because he's so good. I'm not paid by the word. I'm not paid by the word. And the same thing in football. I mean, I've told the story about, this is over 20 years ago. Jack and I were doing a game at Three Rivers Stadium. And in the first half, he was rushing. So we got to halftime. It's the only time we've ever talked about this. Only time. And I said to him, he said, "Can I talk to you for a second?" He said, "Sure." I said, "Why are you rushing so much?" He said, "Well," he said, "I just want to make sure you get it back in time." I said, "Who cares about that?" I said, "Everybody wants to hear what you have to say." Right? Everyone wants to hear what you have to say. Same thing with Dick. I said, I can take it from wherever. If you go shorter, I can do more. If you go, it doesn't matter. And I think when you got two people out there, yeah, there's a defined role up to a point, but it's in this case two guys. I mean, I've worked with Doris Burke before and other people, right? But in this case, two guys watching a game together talking. And I think it's a more enjoyable experience for the listener and the viewer. And I think Jim Nantz has done that with Tony Romo. I think he's given him, I think he knows, like I do, I'm working with gifted people. He knows he's working with somebody that's a gifted individual as an analyst, and he's taking all their strengths. I think, and Jim should get a lot of credit for that. A lot of credit for that. All right. Take a break. We'll wrap it up in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK, brought to you by Sunbury Motors. Did you see this story about New York Giants kicker Aldrich Rosas? He was arrested and jailed for misdemeanor hit and run and driving on a suspended license, according to the California Highway Patrol.
Uh-oh.
No, but listen to this. Alcohol impairment is believed to be a factor in the crash. Okay? Rosas was driving a black Chevy SUV when a T-bone collision occurred. Witnesses saw Rosas driving erratically over the double yellow lines at a speed estimated at 100 miles per hour when he ran a red light and hit a pickup truck. Rosas attempted to drive away from the scene of the crash before the vehicle became disabled. He exited and fled the scene on foot without shoes, according to the police report. Now listen to this. Okay, I left out one part because I want to put it here at the end. Alcohol impairment is believed to be a factor in the crash. The crash occurred at 8:25 in the morning.
Oh, my. Someone either had a quick start to the day or had a long night.
Yeah. Rosas made the Pro Bowl a couple of years ago. And last year had kind of a down year. He was 12 of 17. The year before, he was 32 of 33. It's the second Giants player arrested in the offseason. DeAndre Baker currently faces 8 counts of armed robbery and aggravated assault with a firearm from an incident in Florida last month.
You must be so proud of your favorite NFL team.
It doesn't sound good. Ay, ay, ay. They need 40 Saquon Barkleys at every position.
Yes.
Because right now for the Eagles, they're 2 wins.
Yes.
See, that's what's been such a big plus for the Patriots over the years. They start every season knowing they're going to be 5-1. I'll give one of those 3 teams a chance to beat them once. But, I mean, imagine starting the year. You're 5-1. Just in your own division. Not so this year. Lamar Jackson, by the way, admitted in an interview they probably took the Tennessee Titans or underestimated the Tennessee Titans. They caught us by surprise.
Now, why would you say that?
I mean,
that's a young mind learning it right there. That's a rookie mistake as far as media goes.
He says that's what happened in the playoffs when we ended up losing to a team that people had us favored over. It's any given Sunday. You can't underestimate any team, no opponent. That's what we did. They caught us by surprise. That's all it was. Because remember, the offensive numbers the Ravens rang up that night were incredible. Except for 2 interceptions, a lost fumble. He said that shouldn't happen. Tennessee came out to play. I always find it interesting. I know the Ravens have won the Super Bowl before, but this is a new group, essentially. So, essentially, a group of players that haven't, quote, won anything before. So you would think with the opportunity, they'd be the hungriest